Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unleash Her. I'm Roberta, and I'm your host for the podcast today. I'm really excited that you're here, and I can't wait to introduce you to a new friend of mine, Hirsch Rephun. Hirsch had achieved success in a number of niche businesses, but was tired of struggling to convey his mission to others. Through a 5-year personal development journey and aided by 2 decades of professional experience with brand strategy and creative, he solved that problem. He is now a holistic brand therapist serving spiritual and conscious entrepreneurs who want to package their passions, talents, and skills into a high value personal brand that's aligned with who they are. And with the honor here, I would like to introduce you all to Hirsch. Hi, Hirsch. How are you?
Hi, I'm great, Roberta. Thank you. That was an awesome introduction. I appreciated it. And it's great to be here. Great to be here with you.
I'm so glad to have you here. And we always have a little conversation before we get started, but I'm like, oh, we just got to hit the record button here. I
Yeah.
cannot wait. This is going to be interesting. I know it. I can't wait to learn more about you. So, could you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. You know, I think I have an interesting journey. I think we each have an interesting journey, and I think that's kind of the lesson or the message because as we were talking about just before the show, we don't look back at our trajectory of our lives and know what every step meant or whatever it might be. We can't see in front of us. We can sometimes look behind us, but none of it really makes a ton of sense until we figure out why we are here in this here and now moment. And so I had a upbringing where I grew up in Miami Beach. I was a very funny kid and I liked to perform, and it was that kid where you would say like, "Oh, that kid's going to be an actor. That kid's going to be a comedian. That kid's going to be on stage." And that sounded good to me and I loved that. And I had that in me, but I think in the background there was always this thing lurking about being interested in other people and championing them, like thinking I'm supposed to be center stage but really giving people advice all the time, nurturing their creativity. I had a bunch of friends that I wrote screenplays with. I could have written the screenplays myself. I love the idea of nurturing talent. And so, but because I was creative, I didn't become an agent. I didn't become a, movie agent. I wasn't that kind of suit, wearing hustler type. So I went to School of Visual Arts in New York. I was doing stand-up comedy in New York, but I was also a young married dad, and I was like, I was trying to find a stable career. And I found that in the advertising world, working with directors and editors and composers and visual effects artists all working on TV commercials. So I was like a publicist for those artists. So being a publicist for artists, I still felt, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be on stage. I'm supposed to be the artist. I'm supposed to be the filmmaker. I'm supposed to be the actor. It was kind of a weird dichotomy, and I wrote screenplays, and I got a few movies made, little movies, but it was encouraging. But at some point, I would always gravitate back to championing other artists, and then it was like it wasn't even artists anymore. Then it was brands, footwear brands, sneaker brands, because my best friend owned a chain of sneaker stores. Brands were asking him for marketing advice, and this was in LA on Melrose Avenue in LA. So, people were very enamored of the footwear styles there. Sporty LA is the store that he still owns, and that became a business too. And so championing a brand, championing a person, it just felt right to me. People used to say, "Oh, you should be like a talk show host," and I would be like, "No, I should be the guest on a talk show." Now I am a guest on your show, but I also host. I'm like, just just eventually gave into all of it. And I think it was like we were talking about the pandemic put a stop, a hard stop on everything everybody was doing. And so the people that, knew exactly what they wanted were doing what they wanted. The people who weren't, like, you and like me, we had to stop and say, okay, what are we supposed to be doing? And sometimes you're like, well, what am I doing for money? Or you're like, well, what am I doing with my life? And I asked myself both questions and I realized I had to start doing something I had never done, which was to explore my own psyche, do meditation and just quiet my mind for 5 minutes at a time and do some exploration of myself because I think part of that performer mentality was, you're there to make people laugh. And if you're there to make people laugh, and you can be provocative, but if you're there to make people laugh, you you may you may think that what you're doing is not like that important. And and that's a weird feeling. So
Mhm.
anyway, it was an interesting revelation to me to start meditating and doing peak performance courses and quantum consciousness stuff, and then discovering that this thing of championing other people and bringing out their stories and bringing out their brands was really what I wanted to do all along.
Oh my goodness.
That's a long story. I went a long time, but
Oh no, no, that's
there you
quite all
go.
right. I love that. And I love it because we kind of had like a similar experience in 2020.
Yeah,
And, a lot of people went back to their same career, their same life, whatever that. And that's great if that's what you want, like you said. But there were some of us that were like, hold on.
yeah.
Oh no. So, so what began to change and shift after the 2020, after the pandemic for you?
I think when I started podcasting, um, and I was talking to people, my fear was that because I thought of myself more as an entertainer, I might not be a good interviewer. I might not be, uh, qualified. And and one of the first interviews I did was a mother who had lost her daughter to suicide, her teenage daughter. And I was at first thinking, okay, I don't I don't know if I should, like, I don't know. Like I want to talk about how you survive and thrive in a chaotic world and how laughter is the best medicine and all of that, but this is pretty heavy. But she was so reassuring, and she was like, no, this is exactly the kind of conversation that we need to have. And she said, you're an amazing listener. And I drew on that and leaned into that, and I realized that listening to people's stories was the first big breakthrough. I had been doing it my whole life, but I don't think I gave myself credit for it. And so I realized listening is the superpower. Writing, communicating, giving people counsel, all of that stuff. Those are tools, and they're useful skills. But a superpower is something you didn't make up. A superpower is something you have. And this ability to be curious about people and really listen to what they're saying is that.
Yeah. I love that because sometimes we're like, we don't what's my superpower? I don't know. What if
Yeah, you
somebody
just think
says
about
that?
the things you're good at. Like someone will say, more than one person has said to me, "Oh, my superpower is that I always find a parking spot." And it sounds the most ridiculous thing, but I have had people seriously say it. And the interesting thing is, more than one. And I think what they're thinking is, what what is really unusual about me? What is like my magic trick that I can do? But a superpower is what do you do that you do in your own way that no one else can do, that really helps you and someone else effortlessly. Like, you don't have to work at it, and you do it better than anybody else still. That's a superpower in my view.
Okay. And so some people have a hard time finding that. So is
Yeah.
that one of the things that you do is to help them to uncover?
Yeah, I think I look at everything through the prism of their their brand, right? So obviously it's that they want to do this for their business. But in the context of figuring out what their message should be, what their brand voice should be, what tone they should take, and what their strategy should be, it's really important in my process to go back and analyze all their skills and powers. And most people will not do that deep a dive. If you get a online course, even from some of the top
Mhm.
personal branding experts, they're not interested in that, and they don't. That doesn't serve them because it takes time. It individualizes things too much. That's not what most of these people want to do. They want to serve a ton of people with a course that you can go online and buy, and then they don't really have to do anything. But and that's great. That's fine. If the course is useful, it's amazing. Must be if they're selling millions of courses. But for me, it's like the personal thing. It's the human thing.
Yes, same here. Like, the mentors, the coaches that I've had, I always want that one-on-one
Yeah.
kind of thing. I want to for them to really hear me. And so and my brand came about just with a conversation with a friend.
Yeah.
So and it was just me just really telling her all of just about me, and she just kept asking me questions, and it brought forth this brand of
Yeah.
Unleash Her. And so, but that was like a year and a half ago. And so when it first happened, I was like, I'm not this person. Like, this is who I want to be, and I'm working toward.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's not a lot of difference between who you want to be and who you who you are already. It's just a timeline thing.
It is. I just want to jump right now because I'm like, you seriously, that is exactly it. It's you are that person, but it's accepting that.
Yeah. You're that person at point A.
Yeah.
You're still going to be that person at point B, but that person has evolved. And the other thing, Roberta, is that
Uh,
your brand evolves constantly.
Yeah.
So I say that I work with ever evolving, achievers, people who are, it doesn't matter what they've done in their lives. And it's not because they're super ambitious, like they just want more, 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 more. No, but they evolve. It's like,
Yeah.
you eat something that you like, you're going to want more of that food. So they accomplish something, or they evolve. The light bulb goes off. They're like, "Ooh, I love that feeling when that light bulb goes off. I want to do that again."
Yeah.
You know?
So that's crazy. So this whole thing, like I was a keynote speaker a couple of times before even starting my podcast. And
Yeah.
it was scary. It was so scary. I mean, sweating, just being on stage was so nervous, but I loved it. And I wanted to
Yeah.
do it again. I was like, I want to do it
Awesome.
again.
Well, that's great.
So you're like, give me another opportunity,
Yeah.
please. And
Yeah.
that's how it is. And we've always had that inside. I've had it inside since I was a child. The
Yeah.
same. We've had those superpowers all of our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other thing about superpowers is that they are there,
Yeah.
you know. They're there. So, but it does matter what you do with it. You know,
Yeah.
what are you doing with there's nothing, some of us think there's something wrong with it if it comes easily. But as we get a little older, we realize, you know what? Nothing really comes easily. So if we get a break here and there where we have an ability that just requires a little bit of love and nurturing, that's fine because there's plenty in life that's going to be a hurdle and plenty of life that's going to take trial and error. So, you know, something that comes a little easily means you did some hard work at some point prior to that.
Yes. How was it for you to find that space to like meditate and be quiet? And was that something you were used to, or were you always used to like having people around and entertaining
Yeah,
everyone and
no.
making them laugh?
No, I was never I didn't even like silence because I would work like I would work in my living room or I could work anywhere with any kind of noise going on, kids, TV, anything like that. And I think I liked the stimulation. Like when I was in offices, even when I had my own firm and we had a loft space, I had my two business partners in the loft with me. At first, it was my own office, and because I was the CEO, CEO, and then it was like, no, let's just all work together more in like a bullpen thing. I liked that, and I had a friend of mine who's a CEO at a big company, and he said I started meditating for 3 hours a day. Sorry, I started meditating for 3 minutes a day. Three
Mhm.
minutes a day, he said.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What can you do in 3 minutes?" And he's like, "You try to stay still for 3 minutes and see, it's amazing." And when I started doing it, it was like 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Now I can meditate for an hour easily. I might fall asleep if it's that kind of time of day or whatever, but honestly, I can do that for an hour. That's amazing to me that I can sit quietly for an hour. That's
That
crazy.
is that is amazing. And I have to tell you, so I've always been the one that I like quiet and I can't
Yeah.
read if there's any noise outside. Like I need total complete focus. And so as I've been working on this, just meditating in quiet time, I give this example. It was just 2 nights ago because we had this huge storm here. We lost electricity and I'm used to sleeping with a fan on for that white
Right.
noise. And I could
Mm.
have been like so annoyed. But I'm at this point now that I can control my mind more. And I was like, no, I'm not going to get aggravated. I'm
Right.
I'm going to allow myself to stay in this relaxed state. And
Yeah.
I have never, I'm telling you, this is new to me. So I know that what can happen, what are outcomes that can happen when you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and it just goes to show that there's so much power in our mind.
Yeah.
Um and I love that, and everybody probably says this. I love that meditation is a practice because practice is literally what it is. It's
Yep.
just trying to get somewhere. You're just trying to go deeper. That's really it. And the more imagination that you can channel into it, the deeper you go. And there's no expectation.
Yeah.
Life is full of so many expectations like I gotta do this to get that. I gotta get this. I do lists every day and I check stuff off
Mhm.
and I'm very task oriented. But at the same time, I think the fact that there's no wrong outcome is something that everybody can use a little of that in their life. There's no wrong outcome. It's for you. You're not doing it for someone else. There's no performance anxiety that you're going on stage or you're going into a meeting or you're going on a call. There's none of that. It's you and your with your own thoughts and your own vision, and I find that really liberating.
Yeah. And when you get those ideas during meditation or quiet time, like those are things that you really need to follow. Your intuition is everything.
Yeah.
And I've just seen it, in my life too, but you you've done a lot. You he's like,
Yeah.
I'm just like reading your bio and all of the things you've done, and I think that just really what helps make you so successful in everything that you do because you were out there experiencing that. So I call that, that's the masculine energy, not that it's male or female, because I
Right.
am also have a lot of masculine energy. I'm
Yeah.
out there bumping, grinding. I'm going to try it. I'm not
Right.
afraid. But when you
Right.
add that spiritual connection to it, that feminine energy, quiet, they say, you're like unstoppable, right?
Yeah, that's really well said, Roberta. Thank you, but it is really well said because I think it's that balance that makes us whole people. That's the thing that makes it like what I mentioned to you about the two podcasts. Having my business oriented one and my life oriented one, they're both me. I'm the host of both of them, and the guests are very different. But the idea is that I'm balancing, you know, real life struggles and solutions with, you know, business building, and it's like, at a certain point, they need each other, and I think that's what that is. I think the other thing is I don't think I realized I definitely didn't set out to accomplish all those things that I've done. And I accomplished certain things that I did set out to do. But I think what a lot of us feel is when we accomplish something, it isn't as rewarding necessarily as we thought it would be. And if we I write about this in my book. There's uh, a section that says the chapter that says the breakthrough is in your head, not the wall, right? Because we constantly think if we're trying to do this thing and if it's that hard and we're banging our head against the wall and it's not clicking, we need to take a step back and think if that wall is really the thing we need to break down. That may not be the wall for us. It's not quitting, it's not giving up. It's just being honest with ourselves. Take a deep breath. Is that really? If it is, by all means, just keep banging. Let's do it. Let's figure out the way. But is it? Is that wall really? And only we can ask ourselves that. Nobody can. Nobody else can ask us, or we're not going to listen to them. And we shouldn't. We should listen to ourselves. But is it really? Is it really is that the thing? Is it possible that there's some other thing that we're just not doing that would be a better wall for us to, you know, attack?
Yeah. And you say it so well. And I love it because you lead by example. You
Yeah.
have you are your authentic self, and I love that. And that's what my podcast is about too. We showcase people that are authentic, and that is you. You have found that. And so do you I find that awesome. Thank you. You've
Thank you.
you've combined that professional and personal development together. And so myself with being so masculine and tapping into that other side, my feminine side, now I've seen that anything is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's well said. Thank you for saying that. Um, and for seeing that because I think that's the real takeaway in the end is that nothing is impossible. I can't remember where I heard this. It was a I honestly don't know. Might have been. I want to say it was my dad because he had a really great facility with language, but I don't know. But it was that very very little in this world is impossible. There are things that are improbable, which means they they don't look likely to happen. And you can improve on that by taking certain steps. So if something looks improbable right now, that's right now. You take a, record another episode, do another interview, do another this, have another thing, and then it becomes even more probable, and you move from improbable to likely to it happening. And yet, if we think something is impossible, there's no point in even trying to move the needle because it's impossible. So very little is impossible, if anything's impossible. But we just have to work on the probability and improving our probability through action.
And it's a work in progress. And that's
Oh yeah.
so I hear people that are like, yeah, but let's be realistic.
Oh yeah. I know. I hate that's probably the thing I hate the most is saying that, like hearing
Mhm.
that. And I probably have said it, but I think I look at it this way. Yes, let's always be realistic, right? Let's always be realistic. There isn't a point in being fantastically, unreal, but let's also acknowledge that we have some power over our actions that we take toward what's going to happen. It's not about real versus unreal. It's about what we're willing to do in the pursuit of what we want. So it's like, let's be realistic here, but that, like that balance, what is it going to take? I'm one of my sons years ago. He's 30 now, but when he was about 20, I think, or 18, no, he wasn't even 20. He was probably 17, and he wanted to be an actor. He said he wanted to be an actor, and I said, okay, I have all these books from when I was acting and, you know, all this stuff. I'm going to send you all my acting books and you read every one of those and then tell me what you think. And he called me a little while later and he said, yeah, I don't think I want to be an actor. And it was like, as he started getting into it and exploring it and realizing, it's not about just being on stage or being in front of the camera or having people take your picture. It's about, a craft and study and dedication and giving up a lot of things. And it just wasn't what he wanted to do, you know?
Wow.
So I think, and now he's a jewelry designer and he and as an entrepreneur and as a jeweler and as all of this stuff, he's like every time the challenge has come up where he might quit, he hasn't. And that probably throws back to that lesson a little bit that, you know, okay, dive into the challenge then, you know, uh, and see what happens. See if it dissuades you, and if it does, see if you have the wherewithal to meet that challenge. And if it
Oh
doesn't,
my.
you won't.
Yeah, it's and the biggest thing is finding out what do you want, because along the journey I've tried a lot of different things and I'm not afraid. And I feel like I'm one that's living proof that anything is possible. I have overcome a lot. I'm not the only one, but I'm just saying for
Yeah,
someone who did not, go to college whatsoever. I went to beauty school,
right.
when I was 16 began. And I'm an author. So
Yeah,
just to say anything is possible, I know it is. I know because I've
yeah.
done it myself. And so
Well, I
once
love
we
that
do
you're
that.
fearless. I love that you don't because I don't know that I can say that. I can say that I've overcome a lot of fears and I can say that I've abandoned a lot of fears, but I don't I'm not that person that would say I'm not afraid of anything. I just don't have that. That's not my superpower. That
Yeah.
is definitely not my superpower. And so
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, but use the superpower to get over the thing that's the obstacle.
Right. Right. Okay, now listen. I saw this thing on here on your bio.
Yeah.
It said something like you've been held at gunpoint.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By cops, but I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
still
Okay.
no fun.
Yeah. So what's like the weirdest life experience that shaped your personal brand
Well,
philosophy?
you want to know about that experience?
Yeah.
Okay,
If you want
because
to share, if you want to share
yeah,
it.
of course, I wouldn't have put it there if I weren't willing to share. But I don't talk about it all that often. Um, I was a stand up comedian. I was living in Los Angeles. I was um, doing stand up every night, and my partners and I, my business partners and I, had actually taken a year off from our PR firm and our other work to pursue comedy, but also to do like content, shoot content and stuff. And
Yep.
so I had bought a beat up old Volvo wagon for $1,500 that my partner found on Craigslist as a car that we could use to have equipment and costumes and any other crap that we wanted and just kind of go around. Now, ironically, it also helped to go into any neighborhood with a beat up piece of garbage Volvo wagon that cost $1,500. But on this particular night, and I had just bought it, and on this particular night, it's like 1 a.m. I just finished a set at a place called the Haha in Burbank. Shout out to the Haha and my friends over there. And I'm getting ready to go home, and I'm about to pull onto the freeway, and I notice a cop car behind me, but he doesn't have his lights on, and I figure, okay, doesn't have its lights on. It's odd that it doesn't have headlights on, but I don't. But I haven't made a wrong turn or anything. I made a U-turn, but it was a legal U-turn. And right before I get to the egg to the on ramp to the freeway, the lights come on, and not only do lights come on in that car, I realize there's like 4 or 5 other police cars, and all the sirens go off, and they go pull over. And I'm like, oh my god, something must have told me that it wasn't me, that they wanted. But anyway, but it's you're like, okay, and I pull over. They get out of the car. Actually, the funny thing was, so I look in the. I'm even afraid to look over my shoulder. So I look in the rear view mirror and the side view mirror, and I see 5 cop cars with the cops out of the cars, and shotguns and pistols and everything trained on my car. And they go, get out of the car. And they go, put your hand out of the window and open the door from the outside, which I guess they do so that if you have a weapon, you don't have the opportunity to open up the door and fire on them. But at the time, all I'm trying to do is reach over the door and open the door. And every time I reach over the door, because remember, I just bought this car, every time I reach over the door, it has that old fashioned lock. And my arm goes down on the lock and locks it. And I do this like 3 times. And they're just getting pissed off. And then the sergeant's like, just get out of the fucking car. And I open the door. Get out on the ground. Get on the ground. Get spread eagle on the ground, or I'm going to put a bullet in your leg. One of the guys says. Now I'm really scared. So I go down. I go spread eagle. I totally cooperate. One of the officers, which I'm still thankful for, we were talking about masculine and feminine energy. One of the cops was a woman, and she had that feminine energy where she was like, she's putting these, they have the plastic handcuff thing. They're just a loop. It's not it's just a tie, a twist tie. It's like a pull tie, right? So she's putting it on me, and she goes, "Don't worry." She goes, "Don't worry. You're not who we're looking for." And then she stands me up. They stand me up. They bring me over to the car. They're not rough or anything with me, but the screaming and the guns were enough. And And they go, before I go into your pockets, what's in your pocket? And I go, I think my wallet and my phone, I guess, or maybe my phone's in the car. I don't know. I'm like nervous at this point, and I'm like probably seeming guilty of something at this. Like I don't know. Like at this point, I'm like, okay, I don't know. There's my wallet's in my thing, and um, and then they go, anything else? I go, no. And then they go in my pockets and they come out with a pill, with a little pill. What's this? I go, lactate. I'm lactose intolerant. I go, I'm lactose intolerant. And and they go, okay. And they kind of laugh. And then they put it on the hood of the car. And then then I go, I'm not a criminal. I said, I'm not a criminal, I'm a comedian. And they go, all right, well, looks like you're gonna have a story to tell. And they said, we saw you, the license plate for your car. They go, we're gonna have to take your license plate. You can have the car, but we're gonna have to take the license plate. You're gonna have to get a new license plate. They go, because the car with that license plate and that description was reported as having been used in the commission of a violent crime, and you are not you don't match the suspect's description. He's bald, he's 6 feet tall, you know. They go, but we only caught the plate as you were driving away from the comedy club, so we didn't know whether you matched the description or not. So for all we knew, you were an armed criminal in a in escaping, you know, leaving the commission of a violent crime. So they had that's why they had gone to those lengths, but it really was kind of chilling because you realize in that moment you're like, you know, you are powerless to do anything, and if you do the wrong thing, they'll shoot me in the leg, and that's not why I got into comedy, um to get shot. So so that traumatized me for quite some time in terms of, you know, being in exchanges with the police, like you know. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
what that story was, and it was transformative, I think, because I I did start telling more stories in stand up that were about real life experiences after that,
Mm.
you know. Um, and I felt like that was important. And that was part of my development. It's like we talk about that road. You look back at that road. Now, when I look back at that experience and how I was willing to talk about that and other things that were, you know, like I had gotten a DUI years before, and I had never talked about it in my comedy. But after that experience, I was like, yeah, I should talk about that experience. I should, and of course, you jokify things. You create ways of, but the essence is the same, you know. And I wanted my kids and other people to know about these things because I felt like, you know, there are important lessons in all of these things. So so I used it in the stand up, but it shook me up. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And sometimes we're like, wait, did I attract this into my life? And if I did,
Oh
what?
yeah. Well, I did in a way. In a way I did. In a way, this idea of stepping away from business and committing to stand-up comedy in my 40s with, you know, a family and kids and all that stuff, you know, maybe that whole journey was a little bit of a misadventure, right? You know, maybe I had overcommitted to that. Like I wanted to be a good comedian, I wanted to get good at something, and you have to commit. but I think I could have achieved a better balance. I would never do that today. I would never do something so to the exclusion of anything else that it becomes impractical. Like you say, let's be realistic. Yeah, you can do you can do important things with tremendous commitment and still maintain other commitments. So you don't have to screw one thing up in order to succeed at something else.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
they say too, I mean, did we learn from this lesson? Was it a
Yeah.
lesson? Are we tested in life? Who knows? I don't
Yeah.
know. All of this, and if you don't learn your lesson from a situation, not from that big example that you gave us, but just
Yeah.
from even little things in life, like, did you learn a lesson? Because if not, you might be fed that again.
Yeah, don't miss that lesson because you know that you don't get opportunities that you don't seize are not coming around again. That's
Yeah.
for sure. And lessons that you've been taught, as you point out, Roberta, that you failed to learn will probably be taught to you again. And you may not be so lucky next time
Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
here. So whatever the lesson was, you're here. And if you didn't learn it, it's gonna be taught to you again.
Yeah. Do you feel do you feel successful? Do you feel like you've done the everything in your life? I know you have a lot more that you want to
Yeah.
do, but do you feel right now that you're where you need to be?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm where I need to be right now, but I'm also eager to be where I need to be tomorrow,
Mhm.
and there might be a huge stride that that happens between today and tomorrow or this morning and tomorrow. And I need to take that stride. Um, and I know what those things, I know that there's, so, I'm not, I would say I'm successful. I would say I'm not fully satisfied that
Mm.
that with everything that I've done, because it's also like, when you have these revelations of things that you were supposed to be doing or whatever, you become very impatient and you become very energized, and that's great. And then you have to have a little patience sometimes to do the right thing, because if you're overly eager and overly anxious, you might make a decision that's not the right decision. So you have to be like, regulate your passions for what you're wanting to accomplish, you know?
That is that is gold right there,
Oh, yeah.
because what I've learned, because I am very masculine energy, so I'm out, I'll do anything, whatever, and then I'm
Right.
like, but when I took, and it's exhausting.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
can be exhausting because you're just trying anything to see what will work. So when I took a step back and stepped into the feminine energy, to meditation, to just quiet time and wait
Yeah.
until you get that light bulb moment, then make your move, life is so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah, it is. It is. My dad did say to me, one of the things that I always remember is, if you're going to do something, do it right.
Mm.
If you're going to take the time to actually do it, whatever that thing is, do it right.
Oh, and follow through, because there have been many things that I gave up on, and because it was just too hard, I guess I thought, or
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love what you're doing. I love how you're guiding people in both of those, and you have that perfect balance, and that's awesome. And so what are do you still, you were talking about plays and things like that. Do you still keep your hands into that type of thing, or
No,
yeah.
um, I have, honestly, I've written enough screenplays. I think at this juncture, I now there are screenplays that I've written that I would love to still get
Mm.
made, and so I don't rule that by any stretch. But I feel like now now that I've said that, though, I think if something were to get hold of me and inspire me, I would I could see that I might write another screenplay, and but it would be under the right circumstances. It would be something where I really feel like either it's commissioned, either someone says, yeah, well, I'm going to make this movie, so write this screenplay. Um, that would be attractive uh, because I think a lot of it is learning. If I look back, and I've written three movies that were produced, but I've written probably 20 20 feature length screenplays, I think, and and some have been not good, and some have been what I would consider to be, you know, good. Like they are what I wanted them to be. And it's not a solitary thing. I want to be clear about that. Like I think I've written a number of them with partners, I've written a number of them with a partner. But and I've collaborated on a few others, as I mentioned, and I have worked with a producer on a number of them that I we really spent a lot of time nurturing, cultivating, getting it right, you know. Um, so it was a great part of my life to be doing those with so much commitment, and I think I learned a lot. But I don't really I wouldn't say I keep my hand in it.
So we were talking before about making moves and things too. And so you have lived in some of the major cities. You have
Yeah,
moved a lot.
yeah,
You have really lived life, and you ended up in, I don't know if you talk about, where you live now in your personal
yeah,
life and all that, but it's kind of changed, living
yeah.
in, growing up in, Miami
Miami. Yeah, I have
and
lived in really big cities and I've lived in smaller places now. And I'm like I am grateful for all of it, but I also think I'm not a what I would call a wanderer, right? Like I've stayed in places for
Mhm.
15 years, 10
Yeah.
years, 15, 20 years. I just think um this next chapter will be a lot about traveling and not about a new place that I put down roots in for another long stretch. Like I think now it's about, you know, traveling. See, my kids are in different places and like I think it'll be about adventure more than even it has.
Yeah. So if is there a place that you would love to travel to?
Um yeah, that I've never been,
Yeah.
let's because there are a lot of places that I like returning to that I've
Okay.
spent time. Um Yeah, I think I have not been to uh, I've not been to Australia yet,
Mm.
and I very much want to go to Australia. So that's one, and Ireland. I want to take my sons to Ireland. I have never been to Ireland, Ireland and Scotland, and so I think like
Mm.
for my sons, my two sons, that would be a father son trip that would be really cool. Yeah. So those are
Is
the
that
two.
part, is that ancestry or is that just a
No,
place you would like to go? Yeah.
it's in fact not ancestry. Like I've been like our ancestry, goes to in the short term, Eastern Europe, and in the longer term Israel. And I've lived in Israel, and they've all been to well the yeah they've all my kids have been to Israel, and my daughter lives in Israel. So I am there. I'm there as much as I can be, even in very challenging times. Um, but as far as the Scotland and Ireland thing, I just think it's something that we would all appreciate doing together. So it's about what I think we would get out of the experience. And
Yeah.
I think the fact that none of us have ever been there, so it's something we would do that would be the first time for all of us. Like, you know how you go places and you're like, oh, you got to go here, and you bring somebody there, and that's great and that's fun. But I think it's more exciting when none of the people on the trip have ever been there, and
Yeah.
that's rare as you get older.
Right. Yeah. It's on my bucket list. That is a lot of my ancestry, of course,
Oh,
with
cool.
my blue eyes, blonde hair kind of
Yeah, yeah,
thing. So,
yeah,
yeah. So, yes, yes, on my bucket list for sure one of these days. So,
yeah.
awesome. So, how can people find you? How can you be of help for others?
Yeah, thank you. Well, they can go to yesbrandbuilders.com, um, and they can use my name also. Hirschrephun.com is the same, it goes to the same site, and everything's really there. Like my book is there. The book is not officially out yet. It's coming out.
When is
So,
that? When is that going to be released?
well, I would say within, the next, let's say it's April. So yeah, I would say the summer for sure. And then I'm gonna do something. I haven't announced yet what I'm doing with it, but it's gonna be very cool and very in keeping with the way I like to kind of do things a little differently, and that are aligned with my brand.
Mhm.
Um, but the book is called Selling the Truth, a memoir with insights for life and business. And they can go to sellingthetruthbook.com. There'll be updates. They can go to my site and get on a list for pre-order, where you'll be notified as soon as it's available for purchase. You'll get an email with a link to where you can purchase it. Um, so I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Roberta. It's been such a pleasure and such an honor to be on the show with you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll be checking out your book when it comes out here in a few months. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for showing us how you to use your authentic self and being your authentic self, being that example for others. I love it. I appreciate you. I love this interview. And everyone, make sure to like and subscribe and follow my podcast and on YouTube if you're on YouTube and you can see us. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here. And I cannot wait to share my other guests with you as well. So, everybody, have a blessed day and we'll see you all later.